I'm Julia Sorokin. I came back to you, and next hour I'm going to be with you. And beautiful, unusual, and interesting guests will be with me. And right now we're going to speak not about cybersecurity, but about technologies. And we're going to speak about outer space, about its development, about IT, and a little bit about informational security. And I'm visited by Alexander Baun, chief and editor about the outer space. Sasha, you just astonished me sitting in this chair. I just wanted to gossip with you, but you came with a big briefcase, with a teapot, and with royal and a presentation inside of it. Can you show me the presentation? Are we going to have a presentation? Beautiful. Okay. So how are we going to follow the presentation? And you will ask me the questions, and I will make an appearance like I'm speaking. Oh, and by the way, I have a slide. So if you're going to speak about the outer space, and we're going to speak about the outer space, why have not we get outside the orbit of the Earth? Are we so stupid as humans? Well, first of all, I would like to tell you that space machines are reaching the outskirts of the solar system, but they are automatic and manless. And Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 still are keeping connection with us. Unfortunately, the piloted flights, after landing to the moon, we are still staying on the land orbit, Earth orbit. We don't have mega goal. In 1960s, we had a worse situation with electronics, but hackers could not break anything. Sasha, in my ear, I have the news. We are in a newsroom. I'm sorry, but I will stop you. You're speaking about the outer space, and I'm speaking about the informational security. Right now, the red line will get around me. Okay, attention to the screen, and I'm being informed from our teletypes that in our virtual state there was an attack. It's not that I'm really happy. Our hackers was able to get inside of oil and gas company, and they've launched traditional encoder virus. Well, Peter came to our state. A little later, we're going to learn about more details because the defenders right now are investigating this incident, and we need a little time for this. And we're going to come back together with Sasha to our space. Let's forget about the earthly things and we'll fly back to the outer space. Not enough of motivation. Previously, the Soviet Union and United States made countries spend any money, and they were able to land on the moon. So in order for us to fly better and faster and further, we need to have a competitor. Not competitor. We need to have goals. I'm speaking about goals, and on the next slide I will speak about goals, but we don't have enough goals right now. It's too expensive. And if Martian automatic missions cost like $2.5 billion, James Webb telescope, and everybody been speaking about how was it flying, and it was expected by a Russian one. It came here and it says, well, the Russia was here. So it was $10 billion. What about Spectrum? Well, I've been asking this question today, but I don't know, because Americans, they have more open financial reports, and it's much simpler for them to calculate. But in Russia, it's always approximate numbers, because the money are invested and ruble is fluctuating because it's volatile, etc., etc. But I have prepared calculations of how much a super spaceship costs. They said that they will make it for 1 trillion rubles. It's like $16 billion. It seems like it's a lot. But without super heavy rocket, human cannot fly to the moon. Otherwise, you have to send several heavy rockets. We do have those plans, but super heavy, what is the difference? Well, by the carrying capacity and how many people can be in a super high rocket? Well, the average medium rocket can take 3 people to the orbit. Heavy rocket can take 2 people and even 3 people around the moon. And super heavy rocket can deliver the spaceship, which will take them to the orbit of the moon. A landing module will land. Everything's very simple. If the carrying capacity of the rocket is 7 tons, it will be enough to launch Gagarin. If the carrying capacity is 20 tons, like Proton and Angara, if you will try, you can get around the moon. But to land on the moon, you need at least 100 tons, or maybe 120, 140.
Я не представляю себе эти цифры.
Космические значения.
I cannot imagine.
Тоже поговорим. Да, ну, кстати, вот
Yes, we are going to speak about it. And speaking about the moon program,
значит, была в 60-х,
that was in 1960s, 1970s. Speaking about our money, it was $150 billion, even higher. And the same amount of money
которая сейчас
was spent for the International Space Station. And this is the biggest space man-made object in outer space.
дорогой проект.
And this is the most expensive project. It's bigger than Big Hadron Collider. It's bigger than to hire this place, build this building. This is also about $150 billion to build it and same amount of money to serve it and maintain it.
Ну, это плата за то, что мы
Well, it's the payment for being a space species. For example, if photon engine will be invented tomorrow,
варп-двигатели скажут, мы
or some warp engines, and they will say, we'll fly. And we'll say, we know what should be expected because our spacemen are well prepared for this. But unfortunately, the point number 3, why are not we flying outside of the Earth? We don't have enough of breakthrough technologies. We're still flying with chemical engines, and we burn kerosene, methane in the oxygen, or hydrogen in the oxygen. This is wonderful, but this is chemical.
на орбиту, значит,
In order to bring up
тебе надо же
5 tons, you have to burn 90 tons of fuel.
улететь.
It's understandable if you want to fly far away, the size of the rocket will not be sufficient.
Хватает прорывных
So we miss breakthrough technologies.
Логичный вопрос.
Зачем?
Ради
Собственно,
чего
A logical question. Why? Why do we need? For the prestige.
столько белых?
We have not discovered a lot of things on the Earth. We have a lot of
честно говоря,
gaps and white spots on the Earth. Well, I haven't seen any white spot on the map. There are none. But you see,
Тайна Бермудского треугольника, в конце концов.
the Bermuda Triangle secret.
перестали
The
пропадать,
ships are not. After we have launched GLONASS, they stopped disappearing. They've been following our signal and they're not disappearing.
Что если бы ты
Well, I would like to tell you that if you would come to PhD several years ago, you would be surprised. They disappear, and there was one competition dedicated to
пришел туда, где его
how can we move the ship to the place where it never been, and nobody would notice it. It's a wonderful, interesting topic, and you know
этот стендап.
your GLONASS.
Стендов, по-моему, проходит там регулярно около Кремля. Ты ешь, хоп, во внуку телепортируют.
You see, and very soon we're going to learn how to teleport. Not us, not us. Yes, I understand it's very secret, but nevertheless, Spectrum RG, that our telescope I've been speaking about, which is 1.5 million kilometers away from the Earth on the top picture, with a big
Рентгенов.
fly. 2 X-ray telescopes, one thicker one, another thinner one, and long one.
Черный дым.
And they can see black holes, exploding supernovas.
Вселенная видит, да?
Almost the whole universe can be investigated by it. And for example, when American pioneers been flying, they've discovered that they're flying a little bit slower than they have to fly. Is it a Newton's law having an error, or maybe there is some braking environment that breaks them? Before you fly, you will never be able to learn. But ahead of themselves, they've been lighting with infrared light to get the signal and see what's ahead of them. And this beam, it's very weak, but it was slowing them down. And it was measured so precisely that this small breaking from infrared light was measured and calculated. And they panicked because of it. But when they've been returning, was it pushing away? Well, they flew way too far away. And I'm telling you, because you burn a lot of fuel, so you've sent it, and you need the same amount of fuel to turn back. So the ships are flying
На Марс,
for good.
Мы не
на
летим.
Марс, да, ну,
That's why we're not flying to Mars. We still hope to fly there. We still hope that in the year 2027 that we will land on Moon, and somewhere in 30s, in 1930s, so 2030, 2040 maybe. In 2027, even in 2026, they promise in 5 years we're going to land on the moon. So we're going to be able to see it. I hope that we'll see how people will land on Mars. We will. Agreed, we will.
потом мы,
Yeah.
например,
So we also can fly to the moon, and it's empty. No.
в году туда планируют, например,
This year, there are plans to send there a station, Moon 25.
знаешь, как это самое, детский,
It's going to have a shovel.
зачерпнет реголит и посмотрит, сколько
It will get some regolites and we'll see how much ice is in the moon regolite, because there is a certain ice, and some of these water has been brought from the earth. But nevertheless, if you have water, the solar station, you can decompose water into the oxygen and hydrogen. You can breathe the oxygen, you can burn oxygen and hydrogen, you have the fuel.
очень много топлива.
So I've told you. So we need a lot of fuel. But if we can find it on the moon, then it's going to be wonderful. So we will manufacture, gasoline station in the outer space, you see.
Можем куда-то дальше.
So then we'll immediately be able to fly somewhere else. So if we fly to the moon, how much of this hydrogen will you need to fly?
Перемотать
How far away can we fly?
и заправить.
Well, we'll take a lot of regolith and then it's going to be the end of the moon. The moon is big one. It's very big.
Представляешь, если
But can you imagine if the Psyche,
твердое ядро,
it has a solid nucleus in the Psyche, and it has a lot of platinum, trillions of dollars of platinum in Psyche. On one side, you say, why do I need so much platinum on the Earth? But platinum is a catalyzer
не знаю,
to combust methane in the oxygen.
конечно, для
And of course, for the girls, we are going to make the biggest and the most beautiful.
катализатора, да, скажем,
I'm speaking about catalyzers as a boy, but girls will have a lot of
как это самое,
jewelry. And of course,
местного тела,
from one planet to another planet, one planet we take oxygen, another planet hydrogen, another planet gives us some metal, and that's how we're going to travel.
Мы еще так и не...
And of course, but we have not started. And we can compete in technologies to show which country is better, which country is cooler. For example, X-ray telescope we have. Americans have a X-ray
рассматривают объект.
telescope which looks at certain objects and with a higher precision. There's Hubble, which makes beautiful pictures of next galaxies.
К тому, что здесь конкуренция, это
You're saying that competition here is also very important.
Тут
You know,
направления, которые не
they're trying to select directions which are not overcrossing. For example, speaking about Mars and Moon, we are landing in different areas so that we wouldn't research the same area. So if you will discover water in one area, we need to check another area. And also on Mars, they're searching for life, signs of life. And I'm going to tell you about that. They're trying to land in different areas in Mars because they've landed in one place on Mars. But if we're not lucky, that's it. Everybody will fly there. No, of course.
вот там
So it happens that
китайцы, например,
Chinese, for example,
собственную станцию орбитальную, она у них
they're building their own orbital station. It's smaller, but they were able to land on Mars, and a Mars drone have landed there. Russians, Americans, they were not able to do that. They have several attempts, but they did it from the first attempt, which happens that Americans say that we can do it this way, Chinese say we can do it this way, and Russians say we can do it that way. And this competition is not like everybody's running in the same direction, but everybody's boasting of different beautiful dresses.
вот. Проблема
Yeah.
в том, что мы летаем
But the problem is that we are flying too slowly. To deliver a person to the Mars and to fly him back, you need 2 years. Generally, with modern technologies, you will try. We can go for that, and if it's going to work. But it's going to cost $1 trillion. A lot. a lot of money. So if you'll recalculate it into the old money, and I'll tell you, the moon program was 125 billions for America.
У Америки был меньше.
But the budget was smaller. So if you will calculate which share from the American budget, so it happens that $1 trillion today,
Долларов тогда.
Это те же
it's these are the same money as 125 billions there. So it's the same amount of the budget. But back then they had to get ahead of the Soviet Union because Soviet Union was the first in the space, the first man in space, the first came out in outer space, and they've been so offended. Why?
Ну, щас
They've been ready for everything. But right now, I'm telling you, Americans are saying that, well, they will land in 1935 or 1936 on Mars. But okay, by 2040, nobody's in a hurry, like Chinese can land on the Mars. Okay, let's do it first to the moon, both of us,
мы пока медленно восстанавливаемся.
because we are very slow in space. So how can we fly faster? Musk built a spaceship. And its main advantage is not that it's powerful. Well, the powerful rockets have been built before, but it's going to return back.
Помнишь, я говорил, что космос
Which happens, I've told you that outer space is very expensive. So he tries to make it cheaper because the fuel is also not very cheap. But the fuel is like a certain percentage from the cost of the first one is engines. So he does it in such a way so that the rocket flies there, flies back, it's getting charged, and then it flies again.
знаешь, что произошло? Это,
Don't you know what happened? Our system was broken in.
это взломали.
No, it was a joke. So the system that breaks the system is being broken.
Ну,
Okay, good. So
ракету, в которой
we can make a big rocket which will return back,
то есть ты можешь
and you will spend money only for the fuel. So you will invest more money into the fuel and it will fly faster.
построить
You can build a spaceship with nuclear engine.
Роскосмос и Росатом
And Roscosmos and Rosatom are building something like that, and it's going to be built by 2030. And it's not a simple thing. Nuclear reactor will produce electricity, and this electricity will be delivered to the ion engine. Ion engines are used for satellites. Very convenient.
могут работать постоянно.
They can work continuously. They spend their fuel very slowly, but they are very weak.
А большой
Small jet. And big ship cannot be moved by this small jet. But if you have a nuclear engine, you have a lot of energy and you can install a lot of ion engines, and then it's going to fly fast. But it's very complicated. It's very heavy construction. Yeah, it's going to be heavy.
вообще в космосе.
It will take like 2 attempts to bring it into the outer space in pieces, and then it's going to be assembled in the outer space. But it can reach the moon maybe a little slower than a regular rocket. Venus, they will fly together,
Гравитационный маневр.
then they turn around Venus. But speaking about Jupiter, it will fly several months earlier than chemical engine. What does it mean faster? It means that we can send a human out there. And for example,
Потом скажу, почему.
I'll tell you a couple of words and I will tell you why. Next to the Venus,
Я развернусь. Около Юпитера, около Сатурна.
next to the Jupiter and Saturn, there are satellites with a lot of water, and maybe there's life, and we have to search for it. That's what we're saying. Well, if there is a life, there's a simple life, a very simple life, not humans. Humans cannot live in such conditions.
Фантастически.
And there are some fantastic projects, but maybe it's going to work out. Miller have proposed to have a small
Аппарат, ну вот маленький аппарат.
device to next to space. It flies to the neighboring star, like Proxima Centauri, and sends pictures. What happens on their planets? Do they have life or not?
Фоточку. За 30 лет.
At least one picture in 30 years.
Опять я тебе говорю, никаких торможений уже на
But no braking, no energy is spent on this. It works and flies away.
Пока еще это мы так не умеем, но это где
Light sail.
того, что мы можем.
But well, we are on the threshold of learning something new. There are some other fantastic things. There are physical events like
Кротовая.
Рассказывай.
Like the wormhole. Can you tell me about the wormhole? Well, it's called the wormhole because it's in a space, it's a hole in it. You put your hand inside of it, but it gets out in other galaxy.
Сказок пересмотрел.
You've been looking a lot of sci-fi movies.
Думаешь, куда Алиса-то провалился?
Безумного шляпника.
Да, 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 это
It's the crazy head owner. Yeah, the Alice have dropped. It was the wormhole. She was in the next universe. You think why everybody was so strange?
знаем, существует ли.
We don't know whether they exist of this size. We don't know whether it's possible to move into the neighboring galaxy to this wormhole. But according to calculations, it's not prohibited by the laws of physics. And there are engines. Did you watch Star Trek? They created the warp and they boom and they've been sucked somewhere.
Теория относительности.
Well, right now, the theory of relativity does not allow engines to fly faster than the speed of light. And maybe the space can be moved, and this is still a fantastic thing, sci-fi. But nobody prohibits humans to acquire new knowledge and try to move faster.
Пора.
Да, у нас с тобой...
Is it time? Yes, we have 1 minute left. Unfortunately,
Вопрос, либо я
you can ask your question, or I will tell you about the search of life. Tell me about this life search. Is there life? Is there life?
прекрасно.
Studying of the universe is so beautiful, but it's so important to understand whether there is life on other planets or it's only on the Earth. And second of all, is there a cognitive life,
Говорили, либо простейший, либо даже можно.
like simple life, or maybe simple life with brains? No, it doesn't happen like that.
Многоклеточный.
The brain is a multicellular object. Well, we're looking for it on the Mars, and it's too seldom that ExoMars was prohibited. We've been doing it together with Europeans. Nobody wants to be our friends. Europeans told us that we're not going to fly. They're idiots. Well, they could give us the device and we could launch it because they are searching for life on Mars and they cannot find it. But there is no atmosphere on the Mars. It's very diluted atmosphere. So the solar radiation decomposes everything on the surface. So we have to dig. And ExoMars was prepared. So we fly there, we put the landing module, then Mars carrier drills 2 meters deep hole in order to understand. On the depth, maybe there are some bacteria on 2 meters depth.
На
Also, there could be a life on Europa, Callisto. Europa is a satellite. Don't get afraid. Not this Europe.
Может быть.
Well, there could be life in Europe. You'll put me into the extremists. Well, Europe is a satellite of Jupiter.
жидкости, воды на спутнике больше, чем на Земле, хотя он
And there's more water on this satellite more than on the Earth, but it's the size of moon. And it's interesting. Well, is there no life in this ocean? It's liquid because Jupiter pulls it, pushes, pulls, and pushes.
жидкая.
And this liquid is liquid. Maybe there are some simple bodies. So NASA have launched 2 missions
Айсимун, да,
already. First, it was IC Moon, Juicy it was called, and then
в 2024 году Европа
in year 2024, Europe Clipper, and they will analyze these explosions and fountains from under the ice. Is there any life there or not?
Появилась или нет?
So, is there or not?
Пока науки нет.
The science doesn't know it yet. And this is why we have to fly there. And smart life is searched on the exoplanets together with telescopes. We're looking at them, we're investigating them. Maybe they will blink a certain lamp. They're not blinking to us. Then we apply
спектрометрию смотрим.
spectrometric studies. Well, if the planet has an oxygen, hydrogen, that's understandable, and water.
Это биомаркер.
But methane is a biomarker, and it's been created on the planets where the life is. So if we will see something like that, then it's going to be much more interesting for us to investigate the outer space. And second of all, we are getting in touch with the outer space and send radio signal. But then we will know, should we send somebody to that particular planet? Because maybe they have smart life. Sasha, I do hope that someday we're going to fly to the moon, to the Mars, and somewhere else, to some exoplanet. It was wonderful.
Надеюсь, что наши
So I also hope that our broadcasting is being watched by Vladimir Nazarov, and by the next year, or maybe in 2 years, we are going to have space stations in our state. It's going to be interesting to see what can be done with it, and you have to communicate. Well, I would write something about it, and today we've been visited by Alexander Baulit, main chief and editor about the space.